My name's Jamie Holt. I'm 32 years old, a single father, and a man who ran out of choices faster than I ran out of luck. After the shop I worked at went bankrupt, bills piled up like rusted junk in my old garage. So when I saw the listing for a night shift at a place called Pine Hollow Gas Mart, I didn't think twice. It promised good pay, low traffic, peaceful nights. Sounded like exactly what I needed. Peace. Quiet. A way to disappear for a while. The drive out there took me almost an hour and a half through a stretch of desert highway that felt endless. No other cars, no gas stations, not even a flicker of a porch light. Just sand, scrub, and that strange blue glow the desert gets after sundown. When I finally saw the station, it looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. 2 pumps, a flickering open sign, and a roof half peeled off by the wind. The desert air smelled like oil and something metallic. Mr. Avery was waiting for me inside. He looked like the kind of man who'd been here too long, his skin pale under the buzzing fluorescent lights, eyes hollowed out by sleepless nights. His hand shook as he passed me the keys and a clipboard. "Follow the rules," he said quietly, "and you'll make it till sunrise." I laughed under my breath, thinking it was some local joke, but he didn't smile. He just looked at me, unblinking, until I stopped. The inside of the gas station was small, cramped, and smelled faintly of burnt coffee and dust. A single security camera above the counter blinked red every few seconds. Behind a register, a corkboard hung with yellowed papers and faded photos caught my attention. At first, I thought it was some kind of community board, until I looked closer. Missing. That word was printed across every photo. Each one had a different face, different name, but all of them were wearing the same uniform. The Pine Hollow uniform. I counted 13 in total. None of them looked older than 35. When I turned back, Mr. Avery was already at the door, pulling on his coat. "You'll do fine," he said, eyes on the dark highway outside. "Just remember, don't try to understand it. Just follow the damn rules." And then he was gone, leaving me alone in that humming, empty gas station, with only the sound of the wind scraping the glass. Before Mr. Avery left, he reached into the pocket of his weathered jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was stiff with grease stains and coffee rings. The edges curled like it had been handled too many times. Without a word, he slid it across the counter toward me. "Your handbook," he said. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was uneven, like someone had written it in a hurry. Across the top, in smudged ink, were the words, "Night Shift Protocol, Pine Hollow Gas Mart." Underneath, 9 rules. Lock both doors before 11:11 p.m. If someone knocks after that, ignore it. Never refill pump number 3. It hasn't worked since 2007. If a black truck pulls up with no driver inside, turn off all lights and wait. Don't look at the security monitors between 2 o'clock and 2:30 a.m. If the radio starts playing static followed by laughter, unplug it immediately. If a customer asks, "Do you remember me?" answer no, no matter what. When the neon open sign flickers red instead of pink, close the blinds. Don't let the man in the tan jacket use the restroom. Ever. When the sun rises, leave before the radio says, "Good morning." I looked up from the paper. Avery was watching me like he was waiting for something. "This some kind of joke?" I asked, half smiling. He didn't return it. "You think I've got a sense of humor left?" He walked toward the door, pausing by the threshold. "You follow them, you'll be fine. You break them, you won't last a night." I opened my mouth to ask what he meant, but the bell above the door chimed as he stepped into the cold. His truck engine started, then faded down the empty road. For a while, I just stood there, staring at the list. Lock doors before 11:11. Don't look at monitors. Don't let the man in the tan jacket use the restroom. The more I read, the more ridiculous it sounded, like something ripped straight out of one of those late-night conspiracy forums. Still, I pinned it to the corkboard behind counter. If nothing else, it made the place feel less empty. The clock on the wall ticked past 10:47 p.m. I went around locking the doors anyway. The desert wind had picked up, making the glass windows tremble in their frames. The flickering, open sign outside buzzed like an angry hornet. The radio on the counter crackled softly, playing some old country station through layers of static. I poured myself a cup of stale coffee and sat behind the register, trying to convince myself I hadn't made a mistake taking this job. That's when I noticed something carved into the underside of the counter, deep scratches that formed words. Do not talk to them after midnight. I traced the letters with my finger, my stomach tightening. Was it a prank from the last employee? Maybe. But then I remember the photos on the wall, the missing faces, all wearing this same stupid blue uniform. I told myself I wasn't superstitious, that every old station had its ghost stories. Still, I checked the doors one more time. Both were locked. When I turned back, the fluorescent light above the coffee machine flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it went dark. I grabbed my flashlight, shaking my head with a nervous laugh. Welcome to Pine Hollow, I muttered to myself. But as I walked toward the back of the store, I thought I heard something faint beneath the hum of the generator. A soft knock like someone tapping on the glass. I froze, looked at the clock. 11:12 p.m., and the knocking came again. The first few hours passed without incident. The kind of quiet you can almost taste, a silence so thick it presses against your ears. A couple of truckers stopped by before midnight, grabbed coffee, paid in cash. They joked about the gas being cheaper here than anywhere else. I forced a smile, trying not to think about the list of rules pinned to the corkboard behind me. By 12:30 a.m., the highway had gone completely silent. No headlights, no engines, just the low hum of the refrigerators and the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead. I poured another cup of coffee and leaned on the counter, flipping through a dog-eared magazine someone had left behind. That's when I heard it, a faint click, then another, metal on metal, coming from outside. I looked up at the window. Pump number 3's nozzle was swinging gently, clanking against the side of the dispenser. The wind, I told myself. Just a damn wind. Still, I grabbed the flashlight and checked the camera monitor behind the counter. The feed blinked, showing all 4 pumps. Nothing but static and the occasional glitching white flicker. But then, for just a moment, I saw movement, the vague outline of a person standing near pump number 3. A shape, not quite solid, but definitely there. Then the screen fuzzed out completely, lines of static crawling across the display. Must be an old system, I muttered, tapping the screen. It didn't come back. When I turned my attention back to the window, the pump was still. The handle hung motionless, dripping a slow bead of fuel onto the asphalt. I went back inside, double-checked the locks, then sat back behind the counter and tried to shake off the unease crawling up my spine. By 1:58 a.m., I was starting to get drowsy. My eyes were half closed when the radio crackled to life. It started as soft static, nothing unusual. But then, beneath the noise, came a low hum. A tune, a woman's voice whispering. Jamie. I froze. Jamie, do you remember me? The voice was barely audible, muffled through the static, but I knew it. I knew that voice. I hadn't heard it in 3 years. Not since the night my wife's car slid off the highway in the rain. I leaned closer to the radio, heart pounding. What the hell? The static deepened, then cleared just enough for me to hear her again, whispering softly, "Come outside." My breath caught. The air in the store felt suddenly heavy. I reached out and yanked the plug from the socket. The sound stopped instantly. The silence that followed felt deafening. Then I noticed the reflection in the front window. The neon open sign was glowing red, not pink. I turned toward it. The color flickered again, casting a blood-like hue over the counter. Red, pink, red. Rule number 7. When the neon open sign flickers red instead of pink, close the blinds. My hand shook as I reached for the pull cord. Before I could lower the blinds, I glanced outside, just once. Headlights. A black truck idled by pump number 3, engine running, fog curling around tires. The driver's door hung open, but there was no one inside. The windshield reflected nothing. Not the pumps, not the lights, not even the station itself. It was like staring into an empty screen. The air felt wrong, heavy. The sound of the idling engine didn't match the way the headlights flickered, stuttering like a broken film reel. I shut the blinds. Hard. Then the lights inside the station dimmed, humming louder as if the power grid was straining. My heart was hammering in my throat now. I grabbed the paper from the corkboard and stared at the rules again. At rule number 3 in particular. If a black truck pulls up with no driver inside, turn off all lights and wait. I reached for the switch behind the counter and flicked it down. The store went completely dark. I crouched low behind the counter, my breath shallow. The only sound was the faint rumble of the truck engine outside. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then, slowly, the sound faded. I waited another full minute before daring to peek through the blinds. The lot was empty. The pump stood still. No headlights, no truck. I almost laughed from relief. But when I turned back toward the counter, something caught my eye. The radio, still unplugged, was glowing faintly red. And from its cracked speaker, in that same familiar voice, I heard a whisper. "You shouldn't have looked, Jamie." At 2:10 a.m., the air inside the gas station felt different. Heavier somehow, like the oxygen had turned thick. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing between each second. I knew the next rule on the list. I'd been staring at it all night, trying not to think about it. Rule number 4. Don't look at the security monitors between 2 o'clock and 2:30 a.m. The thing about rules like that is, they crawl into your head. You tell yourself you won't break them, but every second that passes makes you want to look even more. I glanced at the dark monitor screen sitting behind the counter. Static flickered across it in short bursts. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to fade. Curiosity won. I reached forward and turned the monitor on. The cameras blinked to life, 4 angles showing the lot, the aisles, the front door, and the hallway leading to the restroom. Everything looked normal at first. No truck, no movement. Then the hallway feed glitched. The picture flickered once, then steadied. Someone was standing in front of the restroom door, a tall man wearing a tan jacket. He stood perfectly still, head tilted downward, hands hanging at his sides. My stomach dropped. I had cleaned that restroom 15 minutes ago. I'd seen it empty. I leaned closer, squinting at the grainy image. His posture was wrong, unnaturally rigid, like his spine had been locked in place. His head hung too low, chin nearly touching his chest, and the light above him was flickering, just that one light. The man didn't move, but as the camera's feed glitched again, his head suddenly shifted an inch higher, then lower, like a puppet on strings. That was enough to send a chill through my bones. Then came the knocking. Soft at first. 3 slow, deliberate knocks from down the hall. Knock, knock, knock. It echoed through the empty store. I froze, flashlight clutched tight in my hand. The radio on the counter hissed softly, but I ignored it. I walked down the narrow hallway, the sound of my boots crunching on the old tile floor. When I reached the bathroom door, it was closed. A faint line of water seeped out from beneath it, reflecting the overhead light. "Hello." My voice sounded weak, foreign. Silence. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. Empty. The single bulb inside buzzed and swayed slightly, as if something had brushed past it. The mirror was fogged over. Drops of water slid down the sink, though the faucet wasn't running. I stepped inside, sweeping the flashlight around. The smell of mildew hit me hard, and underneath it, something metallic, iron and salt. The drain gurgled once, then stopped. My hand trembled as I reached for the light switch. That's when I saw it. Footprints. Wet ones. Bare. They started at the drain and led out the door, each step perfectly formed, still glistening under the flashlight. I followed them back into the hallway, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. The footprints went straight toward the counter, and then they stopped, right in front of where I'd been standing minutes earlier. I looked around the store. No movement, no sound, just the slow flicker of the neon sign outside, painting the room in alternating pink and red. The radio crackled again, even though the dial was turned all the way down. Static, then a faint voice. "You shouldn't have looked, Jamie." It was Avery's voice, but lower, rougher, like something was dragging his words through gravel. I spun around, scanning every corner of the store. Nothing. Then the sound of footsteps, wet, squelching, moving behind the counter. I stepped forward, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. The radio spoke again. He's still in there. I turned the light toward the monitor screen. The hallway camera was still on. The restroom door was wide open now. The flickering bulb cast light on the far wall. And on that wall, written in dripping streaks of dark liquid, was a message. Do not look. The words were fresh. Still running. I shut off the monitor and stumbled backward. My breath came fast, sharp, like I just run a mile. When I turned around again, I realized something worse. The footprints, the ones leading to the counter, they were gone. The tile was dry. The only trace of moisture left was a single handprint smeared across the glass of the front door. From the inside, and as I stared at it, the neon sign outside flickered red one final time. The silhouette of a man in a tan jacket appeared faintly in the reflection, standing directly behind me. Then the lights went out. When dawn finally came, it didn't feel like morning. The desert sun should have been bright and punishing, but the light leaking through the blinds looked pale, muted, almost gray. I'd spent the last few hours sitting on the floor behind the counter, flashlight clutched in one hand, the rules still pinned in front of me. I didn't sleep. I didn't even blink much. I just waited for the sound of another knock that, thankfully, never came. At 6:20, the radio spoke again, one short burst of static followed by a faint voice, barely human. Good morning. Rule number 9. When the sun rises, leave before the radio says, good morning. I was too slow. Still, I made it out alive. That had to count for something. The lot was empty, the air still, but the ground around pump number 3 was damp, oily puddles reflecting the morning sky. No sign of the truck, no footprints, no evidence that anyone or anything had ever been there. I went back inside. Something in me needed answers. The small office behind the store looked untouched, dust coating every surface. A single filing cabinet sat against the wall, drawers slightly open. Inside, I found a stack of logbooks, yellowed pages filled with messy handwriting and old ink stains. At first, they looked like inventory reports. Then I started reading closer. Entry, October 3rd, 2010. Rule number 6 broken. Identity compromised. Replacement pending. Entry, March 11th, 2014. Rule number 8 broken. Casualty confirmed. Area sanitized. Entry, December 19th, 2016. Containment unstable. Audio bleed increasing between 2 to 3 a.m. Each entry ended the same way. An initial, A. Avery. I flipped through until I found the first log dated July 7th, 2007. The handwriting was neater, more confident. It was labeled Incident, pump number 3. There was a line scribbled under it. Do not engage the entity again. Visual contact triggers mimicry. Tucked inside that logbook was a VHS tape in a cracked plastic case. The label was almost gone, but the faded writing read, July 7th, 07, pump feed. I dragged an old TV from under the desk and pushed the tape into the built-in player. The image flickered to life, grainy black and white security footage of the parking lot. A younger Avery stood outside by pump number 3, talking to someone. The man's jacket was tan, the same one I'd seen on the monitor. He stood unnaturally still, head bowed, the brim of his cap hiding his face. There was no audio, but Avery looked tense. He kept pointing toward the door, gesturing for the man to leave. Then something strange caught my eye. In the glass window of the store behind them, Avery's reflection moved. But the man's didn't. It stayed perfectly still, frozen in place, even as the real one shifted. Avery noticed too. He turned slowly toward the window. The moment he did, the camera glitched, the feed cutting to static for half a second. When the picture came back, the pump was still running, but both men were gone. The timestamp on the corner stopped at 2:11 a.m. The tape ended there. I sat frozen, the hum of the VCR filling the room. My hands trembled as I pulled the tape out and looked back at the rules. Never refill pump number 3. It hasn't worked since 2007. That was the night it stopped. The night they came through. The pieces started connecting in my head. The static. The radio voices. The truck with no driver. This wasn't a haunting. It was a breach. The gas station wasn't sitting on haunted ground. It was sitting over something. A fault line between realities, where sound and memory and shape could bleed through from the other side. The rules weren't superstition. They were containment procedures. I looked up at the corkboard again. Every missing employee, every face that vanished. Maybe they didn't leave. Maybe they'd been replaced, absorbed, rewritten by whatever seeped through that fracture. The radio hissed softly behind me. "Jamie," it whispered in Avery's voice. "It's too late to leave now." The open sign flickered once. Red, and then pink again. For now. 2:27 a.m. The hum of the fluorescent lights began to waver, each flicker stabbing through the silence like a heartbeat gone wrong. The desert air outside pressed against the windows, thick and heavy. The open sign buzzed faintly, its pink glow twitching toward red. Then I heard it, the low, distant growl of an engine. I stepped to the window, pulling the blinds apart just enough to see the lot. The black truck was back. Its headlights cut through the fog, white beams slicing across the cracked pavement. The driver's door hung open again, swaying slightly in the wind. No one inside. The radio on the counter came alive with a burst of static, followed by Avery's voice, thin, trembling, warped through the distortion. "Jamie, if you hear me, don't leave the station. It feeds when you do." The line went dead. My pulse pounded. I backed away from the window, clutching the flashlight. But then, from outside, through the crackle of wind and the hum of the generator, I heard something else. A voice. Small. Frantic. "Daddy, please." Every muscle in my body locked. That voice. God. I hadn't heard it in 3 years. My daughter. I stumbled to the door, eyes burning. She was out there, standing near pump number 3, shivering in the headlights. Her hair whipped across her face as she cried, arms reaching for me. I knew it wasn't real. Every rational part of my brain screamed it. The rules echoed in my head. When the sun rises, leave before the radio says good morning. Don't leave before dawn. Don't feed it. But she screamed again, raw, terrified, desperate. And I ran. The night air hit me like a wall of ice. My boots pounded against the pavement as I sprinted toward her. "I'm here, sweetheart. Don't move." She looked up, her face pale under the flickering light, and smiled. Then the headlights went out. Instant. Total darkness. The wind died. The hum of the generator stopped. The world turned silent, except for the crunch of gravel behind me. I spun around. The gas station was gone. No lights, no sign, just the empty stretch of desert road fading into fog. And standing by the truck was a figure in a tan jacket, hands in his pockets. His head tilted upward slowly, face blank and reflective like polished glass. Only it wasn't blank. It was me. My face. My eyes. My expression twisted into a grin I couldn't feel. He raised one hand and pointed toward me, and from somewhere deep inside that reflection came my own voice, calm, cold, perfect. "You shouldn't have left, Jamie." The headlights flared back on, drowning everything in white. Then nothing, just the sound of wind scraping across the sand. The hum of fluorescent lights brought me back. I opened my eyes to a ceiling I didn't recognize, spotless tiles, humming vents, sunlight filtering through the blinds. The air smelled too clean, too artificial. My head throbbed. A voice broke through the haze. "Hey there. You must be the new manager. Mr. Holt, right?" I turned. A young man in a crisp uniform stood by the door, smiling. He couldn't have been more than 25. His badge read, "E. Ramirez." "The boss said you'd be starting tonight," he continued, setting a folder on the desk. "You like it here? Easy work. Just follow the rules, yeah." He chuckled awkwardly and left before I could answer. My throat was dry. I sat up slowly, realizing I was behind the counter of Pine Hollow Gas Mart. But everything looked new. Fresh paint, new floors, no dust, no smell of oil or coffee. The corkboard behind me was empty except for one thing, a folded, grease-stained piece of paper. My hand shook as I picked it up. Across the top, in faded ink, "Night shift protocol, Pine Hollow Gas Mart." My heart stopped. Same paper, same rules, same handwriting. But this time, There was a 10th rule, one I hadn't written. The ink looked fresh, the words shaky but unmistakable. If you see your daughter outside, don't open the door. She's already inside. A low hum filled the room. Outside, the neon sign flickered to life. For a moment, it glowed pink, then bled slowly into red. And from the radio behind the counter, a faint voice whispered through static. "Good evening, Mr. Holt. Welcome back.